If you had told me that the man my family called poor, useless, and a mistake would one day make them beg for forgiveness, I would have laughed through my tears. But the night my mother said, "At least your sister married someone successful," while looking straight through me like I didn't exist, I promised myself something quietly. I would never forget how they treated me. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. My name is Laura, and this is the story of how my family loved one daughter and tried to erase the other, and how the truth they mocked ended up destroying everything they believed about power, money, and worth. I grew up in a house where love had conditions. My older sister, Emily, was the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect clothes, perfect future. And then there was me, the daughter they tolerated, the one they compared, the one they reminded every single day that I wasn't enough. When Emily got engaged, my parents threw a celebration that looked like something out of a movie.
Why?
Because her fiancé worked at one of the biggest corporate giants in the country, a global company everyone admired. A high salary, a respected position, a secure future, as my father proudly told everyone. They called Emily lucky. They called her marriage a blessing. When it was my turn, everything changed. I met Ethan on a rainy evening, working late at a small cafe where I took extra shifts just to avoid being home. He was kind, quiet, grounded. He listened to me like my words mattered, something my family had never done. But Ethan didn't wear expensive suits. He didn't talk about money. And that was all my parents needed to hear. "Laura, be realistic," my mother said. "He's poor." My father didn't even try to hide his disappointment. "This is the best you can do?" They refused to meet him properly. They rushed my wedding like they were embarrassed by it. No big hall. No grand guests.
No pride.
On my wedding day, my mother whispered something that still echoes in my chest. "Don't expect us to help you when this marriage fails." Emily stood beside me in designer clothes, smiling politely, like she was attending a stranger's event. Everyone thought I had lost. They thought I married down. They thought I was desperate. They thought Ethan was nothing. And maybe for a moment, I believed them too. Because what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that the man they mocked, the man they refused to respect, was about to reveal a truth that would shake my family to its core. And it all began the day my sister proudly invited us to a corporate dinner at Ethan's company. The invitation arrived in a thick, cream-colored envelope, addressed to my parents first, and my name added almost as an afterthought. Emily's voice was buzzing with excitement when she called. "You have to come," she said. "It's a formal dinner at the company. Executives, managers, investors, the whole elite crowd." She paused, then added lightly, "You can bring Ethan too if you want." "If I want?" My mother covered the phone and sighed. "Why would she bring him? He'll feel out of place." I stayed silent. That had become my survival skill. The company Emily's husband worked for wasn't just successful, it was legendary. The kind of place people bragged about on LinkedIn. The kind of company my father mentioned with pride to strangers, even though he'd never set foot inside. As the date approached, the house buzzed with excitement. None of it for me. My mother spent hours helping Emily pick a dress, comparing fabrics, calling designers. When I asked quietly what I should wear, she waved her hand dismissively. "Just don't embarrass us." Ethan noticed everything. The night before the event, he stood beside me as I folded laundry, his voice calm but careful. "Laura, do you want to go?" I looked at him, really looked, at the man who never raised his voice, who never made me feel small, who never asked me to prove my worth. "I don't want to hide anymore," I said.
"So yes.
"We're going." He nodded once. "Then we'll go." The evening of the dinner, my parents arrived early. Of course they did. Image mattered more than feelings in my family. Emily stepped out of the car, looking flawless. Her husband adjusted his tie nervously, eyes wide as he stared at the towering glass building ahead of us. "This place still gives me chills," he whispered. "My boss might be there tonight." I caught Ethan's expression shift for half a second, then settle back into calm. Inside, everything glittered.
Crystal lights.
Soft music. People laughing in polished voices. My parents instantly transformed, smiling, networking, pretending we were the perfect family. And then the look started. The subtle glances at Ethan's simple suit. The polite nods that didn't quite reach their eyes. I heard whispers. Is that her husband? I thought she'd marry someone better. Poor thing. Emily leaned closer to me near the drinks table. Don't take it personally, she said softly. Not everyone belongs in rooms like this. I smiled, but inside, something hardened. Because Ethan wasn't uncomfortable. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't impressed. He greeted people with quiet confidence, like he already knew the walls behind the wealth. At one point, Emily's husband excused himself suddenly, panic flashing across his face. The CEO might be arriving tonight, he said breathlessly. Everyone's on edge. My father straightened immediately. Really? The owner himself? Emily's husband nodded. I've never seen him in person. Ethan took a slow sip of water beside me. That was the moment I noticed something strange. The staff, servers, managers, security. They weren't ignoring Ethan. They were watching him, respectfully. And when a senior executive passed by and gave Ethan a small nod, my heart skipped, because suddenly the room felt different. And for the first time in my life, I realized this night wasn't going to end the way my family expected. The moment the CEO arrived, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Tall, sharp suit, commanding presence, but nothing compared to the shock that hit my family when Ethan stood up to greet him. The CEO's eyes locked on Ethan, not with curiosity, but recognition. And then he smiled. A full, knowing smile. Ethan, he said, extending his hand. Is that really you? Ethan nodded politely, shaking the man's hand. Mr. Carter. It's good to see you. My mother's drink nearly slipped from her hand. Emily froze mid-smile. And my father's face turned as pale as the linen tablecloth. Because the man everyone assumed was a poor, unworthy boy, was the owner of the company itself. Not some low-level employee. Not some distant investor. The CEO. The boss. The man who signed every paycheck my sister's husband received. The room erupted in polite applause and murmurs. Executives and managers gathered around Ethan with smiles, laughter, and admiration. My parents stared. Their whispers barely audible. That can't be him. Where, how? Emily's husband looked like he had been punched in the stomach. Ethan remained calm, patient, and respectful. He didn't gloat. He didn't boast. He simply introduced himself to each person, making small talk like nothing had changed. But the truth couldn't stay hidden. Whispers spread like wildfire. This is the CEO? The owner? Then Emily's husband, he works under his wife's husband? Yes, under Ethan. My parents' perfect world began to crumble in front of their eyes. Their golden daughter, Emily, married to someone they believed was powerful, suddenly seemed fragile. Because every decision her husband made was now beneath Ethan. I watched my mother try to mask panic. My father cleared his throat, pretending to ask a question, but his words faltered. Emily's polite smile turned strained, her eyes darting to Ethan with something I hadn't expected. Fear.
Fear.
Not for me.
Not for their treatment of me.
For themselves. Ethan leaned closer to me as Emily's husband scurried by, red-faced and muttering excuses. Don't worry, he whispered, brushing my hand gently. They don't realize it yet, but it's all going to be okay. I looked around. The same people who had sneered at me, dismissed me, or ignored me for years, were now scrambling to adjust. Suddenly, the daughter they had ignored me was standing beside the man they had underestimated, and I could feel a strange, intoxicating power rising in me. A quiet, steady certainty that I had survived the years of judgment, ridicule, and neglect, and now I held something they could never take away. Dinner ended, but the whispers followed my family into the car. Emily's husband barely spoke. My parents' hands gripped their seats, knuckles white. I looked at Ethan. He smiled softly. No revenge tonight, he said, but they'll learn.
And that was enough.
Because the next day, the real reckoning began. The next morning, my parents woke to reality, and it hit them harder than any slap could. My phone buzzed with messages I had been avoiding, from relatives, neighbors, even distant family friends. We heard Ethan was the CEO. Is this true? How is Lara's husband the owner? We can't believe it.
I didn't reply.
I just let them stew. At breakfast, my mother tried her usual facade. Lara, maybe you should explain this to your father, calmly. I looked up at her, calm but cold. You mean, explain to him that the man you humiliated is now the man who controls your son-in-law's career? Her face paled. My father's fork clattered to the plate. Emily sat silently, twisting her ring. For the first time, she wasn't the center of attention. For the first time, her husband, her powerful husband, looked powerless. Later that week, Ethan scheduled a casual visit to the company. My parents insisted on coming, curiosity and panic warring on their faces. They expected to meet a humble businessman who would nod politely. They didn't expect my husband to be the one making decisions that affected their lives directly. The CEO's office was a glass tower, sunlight spilling over the polished floors. Ethan greeted everyone with his signature calm, commanding presence. And then he invited my parents inside. My father, trying to mask his trembling, said, "This is unexpected." Ethan smiled, polite, almost gentle. "Not for long," he said softly. "And it's not just about today." He pulled out documents, company reports, budgets, employee evaluations. And there it was, Emily's husband's performance review. Mediocre. Barely meeting targets. Ethan's quiet voice filled the room. "I've been reviewing the team, and it seems some people need guidance, perhaps mentorship." Emily's husband's jaw dropped. My mother gasped. My father's face turned red with anger, humiliation, and disbelief. Ethan didn't stop. He detailed decisions my family had once thought trivial, showing how every single one of their actions, mocking me, belittling me, ignoring me, was irrelevant to my success. They were powerless. And then the final blow. He turned to my parents and said, "From now on, any decisions that affect Emily's husband directly will go through me." Silence. Emily's eyes filled with tears, not of joy, not of relief, but of realization. Her golden life, built on what she believed was power and security, was suddenly fragile. I stood there beside Ethan, heart pounding. For years, I had been told I didn't matter, that my choices, my happiness, my life were secondary.
But now?
I was untouchable, and my family finally saw it. The daughter they tried to erase was the one who held the real power. Weeks passed, but the shockwaves of that dinner and the revelation at the company didn't fade. They only grew stronger. My parents, once so confident in their judgment, now tiptoed around me. Their words were careful, measured, hesitant. My mother tried to smile. "Lara, we just want the best for you." I let her fumble, let her struggle to find the right words. Because after years of being dismissed, ignored, and compared, I didn't owe her reassurance. I owed her the truth, that I had survived, thrived, and would never be small in her eyes or anyone else's again. Emily's husband, once the golden boy in their eyes, now looked at me and Ethan with envy mixed with guilt. He realized, quietly, that the life they had built around status, wealth, and appearances wasn't enough. It had taken my quiet strength and Ethan's true power to show them what mattered: character, respect, and integrity. Ethan and I grew closer than ever. Not just because of the reversal of fortune or the satisfaction of watching my family scramble, but because we had built something real. A marriage based on love, trust, and understanding. Something no corporate ladder, no judgmental parent, and no societal expectation could ever shake. My parents slowly learned humility. They apologized, not grandly, not dramatically, but in small ways. A compliment here, a polite acknowledgement there. It was awkward. It was uncomfortable.
And it was well-deserved.
Emily, meanwhile, had to face reality. Her husband now answered to Ethan in the company hierarchy. Suddenly, The secure future they had bragged about didn't feel so secure anymore. And in her eyes, I could see the truth she had never wanted to admit. I had married up in every sense that mattered. But I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The real victory wasn't in showing my family that I had been right all along. It was in the quiet satisfaction of living my life on my own terms. We traveled. We built a home filled with laughter. We surrounded ourselves with friends and family who respected us for who we were, not for titles or money. And every once in a while, I'd see my parents glancing at me, their eyes filled with a mix of pride and disbelief. I didn't say anything. I just smiled, because the story wasn't about revenge.
It was about justice.
About surviving a lifetime of doubt, judgment, and neglect and finally claiming your place in the world. And yes, my husband may have been the CEO of a massive company, but the true power in our lives was simple.
Love.
Respect. And the knowledge that no one could ever make me feel small again. So if there's one thing I've learned from this, one lesson I want anyone listening to take away, it's this. Never let anyone define your worth. The people who doubt you, belittle you, or try to erase you, they don't control your story. You do. And that's exactly what I did. If you enjoyed this story and want more jaw-dropping revenge and justice tales, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our new uploads. Trust me, you'll want to hear the next one.